I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange.
Hey there, spooky nerds. It's time for another Talking Strange, the paranormal pop culture show. And once again, I'm your host, journalist, author, and researcher of weird things, Aaron Sagers. And you can also catch me on 28 Days Haunted on Netflix and Paranormal Caught on Camera on Travel Channel and the Max streaming service. And hey, we're currently airing our 7th season of Caught on Camera, which feels like a pretty big deal. So I don't know, check it out as a personal favor to me. Anyhow, today's guest is Rhys Darby, who returns to Talking Strange once again, and he's one of my favorite people to talk to. I just get such a kick chatting with him because he knows his stuff. He loves his stuff. He is the actor, writer, podcaster, and stand-up comedian that you know from New Zealand, from Flight of the Conchords, Pirate Radio, the Jumanji reboots, the X-Files, Hunt for the Wilderpeople, What We Do in the Shadows. Yes, man, so many projects. This guy is busy. And since 2022, he has been beloved as a gentleman pirate, Stede Bonnet, in the Max show Our Flag Means Death, playing opposite his old mate and frequent collaborator, Taika Waititi, who plays Blackbeard. And do check out Our Flag Means Death. I highly recommend it. But anyhow, Darby is a fellow spooky nerd and weirdo, and he's 1/3 of the long-running radio show turned podcast, The Cryptid Factor. Now, in The Cryptid Factor, 3 best buddies, Darby, Dan Schreiber, and Leon Buttons Kirkbeck, bring you a podcast dedicated to all things weird that are yet to be defined by science. Since 2008, they have passionately and often awkwardly, been discussing cryptids and monsters like Yeti, Chupacabra, Bigfoot, Nessie, as well as weird news of the world, UFOs, time travelers, robots, space stuff. And though they take these pseudosciences as seriously as they can, they struggle to take themselves seriously at all. All right, let's get to it. We're going to chat with Rhys about the Cryptid Factor, as well as some pop culture elements, and try to get some news out of him, but really just nerd out about all things spooky and weird. All right, Rhys Darby joining me once again on the Talking Strange show. How the heck are you, Rhys? How's life treating you?
I'm good. Yes, still talking strange, still turning heads and enjoying the summer that's about to hit.
And we are excited because the boys are back in town, back in the weird part of town with Cryptid Factor. You guys have been rolling out a lot of episodes lately. What would you say is the state of the Cryptid Factor right now, in between the breaks, the coming back, the production, and then getting the boys back? What's the state of Cryptid Factor right now?
It's looking healthy, which is weird for us. We're not normally this regular, so it's something to kind of, I feel like we've jumped on this horse or 3 horses and we're trying to hold on. We all have various other jobs and other things going on. And normally we fall off pretty quickly and then we don't get back on and, for another few weeks, if not a month. But I think, we're trying hard to stay regular because I know that's what you're supposed to do.
Especially for men of our age, that's really important.
Yeah. Exactly. And we've got a whole bunch of new fans, and Dan, who has 2 other podcasts. We kind of interact with his other podcasts as well, and we do collaborations. We're starting to do collaborations with other people, including yourself. So it's just like, expanding our world and bringing more people into us from like-minded listeners around the world.
It was something that I've always enjoyed about your show going back to 2013. I think it was 2013, right? That it always feels like it's just a couple friends hanging out and talking and goofing on one another, and that always just it comes across, and that's what makes it so likable and accessible, even if you're not a diehard spooky nerd into this stuff, which I am, of course. But when you approach sort of these new rounds of episodes, do you discuss All right, are we gonna tweak anything, add anything, or is it just, look, we've got a rhythm, we know what it's like, let's just keep to it?
Yeah, I think we generally just jump on, and we may have the odd discussion about where we want to take things, but really we pride ourselves upon surprising ourselves, which uh, is all part of the show. So we will really be unprepared to be prepared. And in saying that, you'll have your own articles, your own things you want to talk about. And we like to surprise each other, shock each other with our headlines, and also sometimes trick each other with something that we bring up during the show that the other, usually me, I am not expecting. So it really is, that's kind of the whole part of it, has become part of it by proxy of us not being able to prepare back in the day. We were definitely more prepared when we were a radio show, when we're actually on the radio. We did that for a few years. And but it's always been a hobby. So there's never really been any kind of money making in it. But recently, going to sort of Acast, getting some advertising in, and actually going, right, we really should be earning something from this, has made us step up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is hard. Three separate places on the planet, and three people who are busy doing other things as well. So it's yeah,
Has it,
it's
well, you've also made your foray into, I know on your personal TikTok, you've had a lot of videos out there, but the Cryptid Factor has now debuted on TikTok. Is that is, I admit, like, I have had to do all the social media stuff, and then TikTok comes along. It's like a great, another platform to learn and then try
yeah.
to say something on. And you're a comedian, so that's, I think, it's your skill set. But is that a difficult transition to adapt to TikTok for you?
I think it's just a bit of fun. I for some reason I like TikTok. I don't know why. I think I like how fluid it feels when you're using it, and how much information you can gain from it, and how much entertainment, and just to know that you can jump off it and don't get addicted to it. So I know it's tricky, but I think, yeah, I felt like I wanted to have a little bit of fun with the green screen type thing. And I know it's fun with the Cryptid Factor. I can sort of have a dabble, and people will find it, and people will find me on there doing it, and they'll go, what is this? Is that guy from Jumanji? I mean, the comments are hilarious.
Yeah, like
It's
that
really
guy.
just for the hardcore fans, like, the 1,500 people or whatever that are looking at it. I mean, it's just kind of like a little bit of fun for me. And I was actually going to do one yesterday, but I couldn't find anything worth talking about. So it's not always, which is fun with this subject matter.
I was thinking about people that discover the Cryptid Factor, because the paranormal stuff and cryptozoology and ufology is huge on TikTok and on YouTube
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. So I was thinking, like, somebody stumbling onto it for the Cryptid Factor and then being like, that's a real Rhys Darby type, that guy that's doing this video.
Yeah.
What what have been some of the stories that you personally have been finding the most compelling lately within this the high strangeness category?
Mm. I mean, that's a good one. Uh, there's been some really weird stuff happening. Um, I'd have to get back to you. I can't think of anything at the moment.
Well, you on the show you recently were talking about, and on the TikTok, the thylacine, supposedly this
Yeah.
this photo of a creature that has been extinct since 1936 or something, or 1934. And it's an interesting photo, but it also, you can't help but wonder, in this age of really quickly developing AI and the ability that anything can
Uh-huh.
be faked, anything can be faked. Uh, and yet it's still interesting. So when you lock on to something like that, what's your BS level at? Are you thinking, okay, this is compelling, or probably not?
That's a good point. I mean, if I look at my TikToks I've been doing, those are definitely some things that have stuck out for me. And the thylacine one, obviously, it's a cryptid. So when we get cryptid news, then it's, you've got to latch onto it. I mean, it's in the title. So that's a big one. And I do love the thylacine because it's such an interesting animal, or at least it was. Do I believe it's still around? I have to say the jury's out, but more than likely not. This thing recently, which I put on TikTok and obviously also talked about on the podcast, this latest sighting was really not so much about the fact that I think something was definitely seen and those photos are real. It's about, exactly like you say, the trickery, and it's about everything is so easily manipulated now with AI, and there's so much fakery out there that it's really quite damaging for our industry, for the paranormal world, because people are now quite easily making fakery. And even just 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you'd be able to tell. Now with those thylacine shots, we had like Forrest Galante and his team looking at those photographs and telling him, I think these are real, and so I'm not a photograph analysis chap. So I looked at it and I was excited, I was kind of thinking, I mean, the story was a little bit dodgy and didn't quite add up, and credit to Forrest for kind of analyzing that with this guy and sort of coming to the conclusion that I think the story was bogus. But yeah, it's the pics. And when I actually put my compadre Buttons on when he looked at the photos, he could tell straight away that the shadow distance between the ears and the grass behind was not correct. And there was things like that. And there was obviously comments of people saying it's AI. But that's where we're at right now, is that 5 minutes ago I would have like asked the AI, whichever AI you've got, to like bring up some photos or create some photos that look like they've been shot of the thylacine with an iPhone 11, and something would have come up that just looks terrible. So that's kind of what that article is about for me, is like us going, oh wow, it's getting real difficult now to tell what's real and what isn't.
Yeah, the paranormal caught on camera show that I do, that's the on Travel Channel, we get user submitted footage and whatnot, and then we comment on it. And the way I approach it anymore is like, look, anything can be fake. So if I can use this, whatever it is, good, bad, whatever it might be, ultimately, if I can use it to spur conversation about folklore or legends out there,
Right.
or
Yeah.
what might be out there, then I still feel like there's something of value to that, as long as
Yeah.
you're not planting a flag saying this is 100% real. Because much like you, I would not, in my lower third list, photography analysis chap. That is not
Yeah.
my label of choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it does make you, I mean, it makes me want to believe, as a lot of these things do. And it makes me think like, look, it is a big world out there, and there's still these big wide swaths of land that something can go undiscovered in. And even folks like Jeff Meldrum is out there saying, hey, look, no, I actually think there's this relic hominid out there
Yeah.
walking around. So the wanting to believe element, that's what that stokes the most. Is that for you as well?
Yeah, and always has from childhood. So it further stokes that. I think hoaxing is a major part of it all, and it's about being able to wade your way through the hoaxes. And I think that's just getting more difficult now with AI and with technology. And to have someone in your team that can figure that kind of stuff out, the metadata, the analytics of where the photo, that where exactly this thing came from, looking into the science of the thing that's on display. I think that's a major part, because we can't, otherwise we're just people are looking at some of the things that we're putting out and they're just laughing at us, thinking that we're fools. And so that's that's sort of at the same time, you know, the Cryptid Factor is a fun show and it's a comedy show, and so I've always had comedy and enjoyed making people laugh, obviously, as part of the show. So we though we take the ideas seriously and we're really into it, we do it with in a comedic fashion, because our tone is to have fun with this stuff. Don't take it too seriously. But you know, guaranteed every time we do an episode, there'll be an ooh and an ah moment where we go, wow. And we go, I mean, you know, we do get amazed. Maybe we're just kids, but it's all very fun.
And I found that, so I guess it's been probably about, I don't know, close to 18 years that I've been talking about this stuff, and then it increasingly became part of like a job, right? Um, but I found, like, in the sort of post-COVID pandemic era, there seems to be even more fascination to it, where I'm getting like new people every day that are interested in, over here ghosts, cryptids, phenomena like that even was previously considered just fairy tales, such as fairies. It seems like people are just kind of into all this strange phenomena. It makes me wonder if, like, do you think that there is this new fascination or interest or intrigue that kind of set in the wake of the pandemic?
I think that definitely helped, because people are not working and they've got more time on their hands to play on the internet. I mean, the internet's a lot to blame with everything in the world, for sure. I don't think it's about them necessarily going out and seeing more stuff, because we were sort of trapped in our houses and things. But I think with conspiracy theories being a big thing and people falling down rabbit holes, that was a massive thing during COVID. You know, people believing in things that ended up being quite ridiculous. And I think it's things get passed around, flat earth, all that kind of stuff. And people are having fun with it, people are mocking it, and some people are really getting into it and deciding to believe in it. You know, and also I think at that same time, theories of us all living in a simulation was another very, very popular one that sort of came out around that COVID time, and is still, you know, on our hit list of, we talk about that on the Cryptid Factor all the time. Buttons mentions lazy code, which is whereby, you know, this whole thing is a computer that we're living in. It's a simulation, and when the code's lazy, that's when you see things that you've already seen, or that's when things are really obvious to you, when in actual fact, some of the time it's probably that you've just been talking and your phone's been listening, and then something's come up, and you know, it's a freaky world, and it's certainly not getting any less freaky.
I kind of miss I don't even really do anything with conspiracy theories anymore because they're no longer fun. They just moved into
Yeah, they
scary.
got too dark. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one thing if it's like Kubrick shot the moon landing. Okay, that's relatively harmless. But the other stuff in modern time, I don't even like touching it, but there is something about the monsters and the UFO sightings and everything, which I don't even know if I consider the UFO stuff as paranormal anymore. Um, it's almost like a little too normal. But I was curious because, of course, from your military work, in New Zealand, and being a fan of this stuff, we have like congressional reports that came out. Everybody was so excited about, oh, we're going to be looking at the UAP topic, and then in March, the DoD comes out with a report basically once again sort of Roswelling it up. Nothing out there. It's Project Blue Book, swamp gas, weather balloons, nothing. Like, and then you have like Japan that announces that they're putting out a task force to look into this stuff. I don't know. Do you think your adopted home in the United States, are we getting it wrong? Like, is there something that we could be learning from other countries as far as exploring the idea of what's out there, what's moving around?
I think it's the strongest nation. It's the most powerful Western world nation, and I think there's just so much going on in the top end that they're covering it, because they don't want to lose the power of once they reveal that they actually know what's going on and that they've been working alongside these vehicles and these off-world entities and things like that, then it's almost like that Tom Cruise thing whereby he's we should have come out as gay 40 years ago. And now it's too late. I don't know if he is or not, but the stories I hear, it was one of those kind of things whereby it's too late now, so they can never reveal or something. But then you get new management coming through, new people coming through, and they go, we're gonna do something where we're gonna drip feed now. We're gonna change the name of these things, and they're gonna make us we're gonna also reveal some of our craft that looks just like them. We start, and then so I think the strategies are all over the place, and there must be a lot of infighting at the top end of the government, the secret end, I should say, which is, I'm sure, off to the side, to the top, and down a few bunkers. But yeah, I think that there's just too much going on, and I would love for someone to just reveal the craft. The closest I felt like we've ever come is the guy who worked in Area 51 and then revealed, what's his name?
I'm trying to remember the name that's coming to my mind is Jesse Marcel, but that was Roswell. And
no, I can't think about it.
Yeah. Well, and with that though, there's the people that come forward and they say, I've worked in the government and I've seen things that I can't talk about.
Oh yeah.
And that always kind of like sticks in my craw, as it were, because like when I was in my 20s or in college or whatever, I technically worked for the government and I technically saw documents I was not supposed to talk. No, they had nothing to do with aliens, but I could easily say I worked for the government once and I saw some things I can't talk about, but man, there's I mean, does that trigger you at all when you hear that kind of thing? Because you do legitimately have come from a time where you were seeing things that you weren't supposed to talk about, just government wise.
I think that's that the military, people have to understand that, the military is so separate to the normal world. They have their own, it's their own world. They have their own laws, and they only talk to themselves. And so once they get out, or once these ones like these pilots and things that have seen things, and then they talk to reporters, that they have to get permission to do any of that kind of stuff, right. Or they're retired or whatever, or they're on their way out, or they have struck some sort of deal. But really, from someone who used to be in the military, once you're in there, you don't even, you call the people outside of the military civvies, civilians, and you kind of, you are so in your world and you're under orders and you do what you're told, and you live in these bases, and even the houses they have are within the base area. You don't really interact with regular people, the civilians, the civvies, at all. And so I think there's something in that a lot of this information, a lot of the top secret stuff, the weird stuff that's going on, that the military know what's happening, and we can't even get near it, because we don't all the technology is owned by the various branches of the military, and their massive infrastructure of management, is very guarded. And so you can't talk, certain ranks can't even talk to above ranks, and then the high officer ranks, no one gets close to them, so they're the ones that know stuff. So and that's just the way it is. And so we're pushing shit uphill to even find anything, if you're not if you don't have an in with these with the military. Basically, that's what I think.
That's kind of why I almost think that part of this notion of disclosure from the government, that if it were to happen, we might be find out that they just don't know anything, simply because they're so disorganized, and it would, I think, perhaps diminish faith, if there is any faith left in the organized bodies, if they're just like, oh, we're also pretty clueless, we can't even get the potholes fixed on your street in Brooklyn. What makes you think that we could really figure this out, since we're so discombobulated? And that's kind of where I tend to think it might actually be going. I don't know.
Mm. I think, well, but there's a difference between the government, your local government, and
Sure.
military. So military, are part of, it's the government. The president runs it and all that, but I think they are, like I said, a separate world to the world that the rest of us live in.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think they do know what's going on.
Know what that.
But they are so compartmentalized that the section that does know what's going on, they're just not going to talk to anyone else. And it's just, when you're brought up through the military system as well, you just obey orders. That's just the way it goes. And then you give orders and you obey orders, and you only speak to the same amount of people that are in that work and live on the base with you, and that's it. You might even, even their families are probably all military. So there's a real disconnect. And so they probably, some of those guys must watch some of the paranormal stuff on TV and just sort of laugh, going, oh man, if only you knew what was actually going on.
Yeah, you got to. They're watching it with their reptilian buddies in the break.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a good animated sitcom.
Like, Zeta Reticuli, as if they have light speed technology.
Yeah, they got that wrong.
You're doing a wildlife show, I saw, according to one of the trade reports coming up, right? You're going to be narrating a wildlife show.
Yeah, that's right.
It made me. Have you ever thought about, like, all of the old nature documentaries out there? Wide World of Disney, all that good stuff. Have you ever thought about, like, maybe there was something captured cryptid wise in the background of some of that old footage? It's just that nobody's really taken the time to scour through all of that old footage and those clips and everything. That there might be in lower resolution in the background. We're looking at, the Pacific Northwest, and then there's just a Bigfoot waving in the background. Is that ever something that's crossed your mind?
That hasn't crossed my mind, because I think even back in the day, the editors, when they put these things together, they are looking at every frame. But I do think Sasquatch would be aware of anything that's around them. Obviously, because of, I think, they have amazing sense of smell and a beyond human level of most of these senses, I think, are beyond ours. And so I think, being animals as well, they would be curious. And I wouldn't be surprised, and we know from reports as well, that when there is stuff happening, people, hunters or people that are going through to do a Bigfoot look, try their luck, that they're there, and they're very aware that the humans are there, and they're just keeping their distance. And that's when they do the whole thing with the rock throwing and stuff like that. I genuinely think that they're just, so much smarter than we give them credit for, that, they've lived their entire life evading us, and just like animals do, we don't give them enough credit. We think of them as us, so that if we were out there, we'd be seen, we'd be wandering through the forest making noise and stuff like that. But actual animals that live in that habitat, they're very silent, and they're completely adaptable to their terrain, unlike us.
So I don't know if you caught that Sasquatch Sunset film.
Not yet.
It's bizarre, it's surreal, it's absurd, but I also really liked it. And I had Jesse Eisenberg and the writers of the film on this show, and it seems like they had really done their homework on it. And it made me wonder, and these are guys that are approaching it because they truly have a passion for the material, even though it's absurd and oddly beautiful.
Yeah.
But for you, from a production standpoint, is there any kind of story that you would like to adapt? Maybe a UFO case, a cryptid story, anything that, bring your talents to the
Mm.
fore to make something happen. I mean, the Obamas are on top of the Betty and Barney Hill story, so I guess you can't do that one. But any other stories that you love?
Well, I mean, I love Phoenix Lights because I just think that was, you know, such a phenomenon viewed by so many people in Phoenix. And it would be great to do a dramatic version of that, like a story based on that. Like, what was that? That was, for me, that felt like some sort of accidental or on purpose reveal by us in conjunction with extraterrestrial craft of some sort, because it was just seen, they were a certain shape. The lights were in that kind of boomerang style, triangular shape. They were absolutely ginormous, and there was just so many witnesses. And so even though that was a huge phenomenon and there was caught on camera, there was, news articles, books written, what have you, there still hasn't been a dramatized version of that. A bit like sort of the Fire in the Sky movie that was the famous
Travis
alien
Walton.
abduction story from Travis, which still holds up as a great movie. There hasn't been enough dramatized like movies that celebrate those kind of cases. I think there's plenty of fictional ones like E.T. and things like that, but you've got one there, I think, that is shouting out for some sort of dramatic. Although I did hear that Steven Spielberg's got one in the wings that he's working on. So I don't know what that story is, but he's got another UFO or alien type movie that he's working on. I saw that recently. So, and Close Encounters was amazing. So I really, really am looking forward to Steven Spielberg's new UFO movie.
It's and from what I've heard, he has kind of reached out to some people to actually put a serious eye to it. Um, for you, was that what were some of the formative, and we've probably talked about this before, so I apologize for the repeat question, but some of the formative pop culture that stoked the fascination? Was it Close Encounters when you were a younger boy? What was it?
Oh, definitely. It was all of those things. E.T., Close Encounters, Aliens, being in the military. I like the crossover between guys who are on some sort of patrol, like Predator. When that came out, I was a big Arnie fan as well. And then all of a sudden, there's this alien that just landed, and that kind of struck me. And the same thing with aliens, like these space marines that have to deal with something up there. Yeah, and then I actually went back and I love, because I love the fun stuff. I really love going back, and I used to watch some of the things that were made in the 50s and 60s, some of the flying saucers and things like that. The Day the Earth Stood Still. I'm even a fan of Mars Attacks,
Well, of course. And
Uh,
the day the Earth stood still holds up, because
yeah,
we still very much would behave that way.
yeah, yeah. I think, and what I love about, yeah, it's still ominous, that one, but when it comes to Mars Attacks, what I really love there is obviously it's a very funny movie, but when they just arrive and it looks like everything's going to be fine and there's going to be handshakes and welcome to Earth, and all of a sudden, the guns come out and just start frying everyone.
The dove moment.
That's right, the dove. Oh my God, yeah.
Um, do you? I know your character in the X-Files revival was dressed as Carl Kolchak. Now that show is celebrating the 50th anniversary this year, so
Ah.
you would have been much too young to watch it when it first aired, and then previously there had been the TV movies. Was that anything you locked onto later, or was
Still
that
haven't locked
purely?
onto that one. But
Yeah.
we never got that in New Zealand. But that show, I believe, was a sort of was an inspiration for X-Files
Most
as well,
certainly.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was real cool to obviously, portray a nod to that character when I did the X-Files. And of course, the X-Files was big for me. I came to that a little bit later because I was in the midst of my big military career when when X-Files was on. And when I got out, and then I started catching up on all this TV that was available, and I think VHS was happening at that point. So I was a little bit late into X-Files, but obviously that became a massive inspiration to me as well. Just because it was kind of like that one in particular it felt like we were being revealed some truth, or there was something coming through in such a beautifully written way that was not so much having a laugh with science fiction and trying to freak you out, but almost basically saying, this possibly is what's happening, guys. So there was that little through line of like belief that this drama, was putting a mirror up to possibly what's happening.
It was
Made
in
it
a way
scarier.
kind of prophetic in some ways. Some of
Yeah.
the episodes. I just want to go back to the El Kolchak for a moment because as a fan of it, a later fan, and I even dressed up as Carl for Halloween,
Oh,
and
nice.
nobody understood. So that really shows, I guess, that I'm separated from modern taste. But the sort of that horror and then comedic elements, the fact that he's can be the smartest guy in the room and then just dim-witted and hapless at times. It feels like if Chris Carter, who is a big fan of Kolchak, were ever to want to bring that show back, I think you could be a good Carl Kolchak. Is that something
Wow.
that you would ever want to do? The step into Darren McGavin's Adidas sneakers and take on the role?
Definitely. But you've got me excited about the show now. So I mean, I've got to go back and watch Kolchak now.
I think you should. I
Yeah.
a couple more questions for you, but I can't help but ask about Our Flag Means Death because I know we talked about it before. I absolutely love the show. It has such a huge fan base, and then it even has the massive queer community support, and we are now in the midst of Pride Month. I don't know, just for you, how do you view, I guess, the legacy of Our Flag Means Death professionally? How does it rank in your work?
Very highly, and and sort of it's an odd one because it in my mind, and I'm sure all the fans' minds, it was cut short, and it was sort of slightly rudely cut short. We should have gone one more, and I think it's because we felt like well, the aim was to go for 3 seasons to tell the whole story, and because it was so good, and it had a lot of fans, and it was representational. It was funny. It was beautifully shot. Awesome costumes. We're pirates on a boat attacking each other and making out. I mean, it was a unique show, and so I'm still getting over the idea that they can just go, we're canceling that, when other things, I won't name any names of certain other comedy shows and things that just keep running. And I think, who the hell is making these decisions? And there could be might be a financial element to it. Yeah, sure. But and I don't need to go down this train of just complaining, but the budget was stripped by 40% on the second season, and we shot it in New Zealand. We saved a lot of money by going to another country, which just seems odd. But still, then they called it quits there at the end of that number 2. And so it's bittersweet in a lot of ways for me, because personally, for my own journey, it was the best thing I've ever done, because I was the lead and I got to obviously use my comedic skills. That's easy, but I got into the drama side of things, and there was some real emotional pathos and nuances that I didn't know I was capable of doing, and I got to do, and I was really, really proud of my work on that thing. So guess like my mum always said, pride comes before a fall. And so I was and so then I just fell off. Then it's gone. But hey, move on. We'll move on.
Would you and Taika ever consider, as some other creators have, perhaps completing the story in another format, another medium, comic books, for instance, a way that you could tell the story that you wanted to?
I think all the fans have already done that, and they've the fan fiction's through the roof, and but I think the show that we made was something to behold. I think hopefully it'll stick around, and it's just 2 seasons. There's a lot of shows that ran for 2 seasons, like Flight of the Conchords, for example. There's only 2 seasons of that, and I think I just look at these things now as pieces of art, and there they are, and you can watch them over a long weekend or whatever you want. But it's finite, and it's done, and you can enjoy it, and you can always go back to it. It's a happy place. It's art.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Anything strange that you have seen in the skies, or especially compelling stories that you've heard from people that you do know and trust, beyond the internet machine? Seen anything, hear anything really interesting?
No, but I'll let you know. I'm going out to the desert this weekend, so you never know. I think I might see something. But I've been out there a few times, and I've always seen something in the sky. So I'm looking forward to I'm doing this. What's it called? 29 Palms.
Yeah. With Bobcat Goldthwait is also doing another night. So you've got a Bigfoot enthusiast. Are you? I mean, I would assume. Do you already know Bobcat?
Yeah, I've met him before.
So he's a big time Bigfoot fan. And you. So this is a recipe for seeing something, maybe a skinwalker, maybe
yeah,
or 2 paranormally minded comedians getting abducted. I don't want this to happen.
Wow, there's your headline.
Well, I kind of want to be, one of the last interviews before you get abducted.
Might be it. This might be the one. Well, this is the final interview. It's been great, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm not surprised I'm being abducted as an ambassador to the Earth people. Bobcat and I'm sure we'll deal with it once we're up on the ship. It's just a matter of how we're going to get back. We'll figure that out.
I'd rather comedians get abducted than some politicians. So.
Yeah.
And I guess just finally, as a random aside, I will be hopping off from this to speak with your Jumanji co-star Karen Gillan.
Oh, cool.
And, any behind the scenes things I should bring up to her? Any questions from Rhys Darby to Karen? Even though you could easily text her, it's shameless plugging and whatnot for this show. Look, I'm not above the cheap ploys. Okay.
No, just tell her, say hello, and I look forward to the next Jumanji, and ask her if she has any updates. Every time we see each other, we go, have you heard anything? Neither of us have heard anything, but there's got to be another one.
All right. Well, in the meantime, you will be keeping up with the Cryptid Factor podcast, yes. Patreon, TikTok, all over the place. Any live Cryptid Factor plans? I know you boys have talked about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think once we've felt like we've done enough of being on a roll for the rest of this year, then we might look at doing some sort of tour next year. That would be the dream. So at the moment, let's just get our numbers up, become the greatest podcast in the world via numbers and fans, and then we can sell out arenas.
So I want, it's a head to head. You and the last podcast on the left, just the battle of the paranormal shows. I love it. I'd be there for that. Awesome. Rhys, thank you so much for your time. And it's just always a pleasure speaking with you. And I just always wish the best for you because you do incredible work. I really enjoy sincerely watching your projects, but also knowing that you are a fellow weirdo in this area. So
thank you. And it's a pleasure always with you, man. I feel the same way.
thanks so much, man. And keep in touch. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
And that was Rhys Darby, the comedian, actor, and podcaster of the Cryptid Factor. If you've not checked out the Cryptid Factor, do so. Go subscribe and listen to these guys. I happen to really enjoy it, and I think you will as well. Okay, my friends, my spooky nerds, that brings us to the end of yet another Talking Strange. I'm Aaron Sagers, and until next time, remember, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.